Hey everybody, happy Wednesday. Hope everybody's doing well. So we didn't do an album homework show last month because that was my fault. We had to postpone it a week. So we're into September, but hey, we're talking Scorpions tonight. I've been looking forward to this show. I've loved the Scorpions, and we're going to do a ranking, and we're going to get all into all the Scorpions records and have a good discussion and a great time. As I always have a great time with these two gentlemen. Mr. Martin Popoff and Mr.
You don't hack.
How you guys doing?
It's happening.
Good. Excellent.
Everybody's doing good. Martin's got a little bit of action happening outside his door right now, but
Yeah. Check my Facebook, everybody. There's a whole bunch of bikers all parked out in front of the office door. There's got to be 300 bikers out there. A mix of bikers and just guys with bikes, but just filling up the street, hanging out, talking.
yeah, that's pretty awesome. All right, I want to say hello. We got a bunch of people in here already, so I'll just say hello to a few of them before we get going. We got Overendum. Nice to see you. El Beeb. Nice to see you. Trucker Kev. How you doing? We got Mitch Heyman. Thanks for being here, Mitch. PJ Kobe. Nice to see you. Steve Auger. And thank you so much, Steve Auger. Sent super chat. That's awesome. Your channel's well worth it. Well, thank you very much. Much appreciated. Tim Thomas is with us. Jose Antonio Marmel, welcome. Jose, got that name already. It's going down. Michael Easter, how are you? Kevin Turchin, Thomas Maynard, Christopher Life Sawa, Lars Guitars, John F. I think I got everybody. Tim Thomas, Papa Blue, we're all strolling in. Fruitcake Tony, how's it going? Joe DeLenza, nice to see everybody. All right, guys, so let's talk some Scorpions. So, first question, always the same question. Martin, when did you first hear the Scorpions? When did they catch your attention?
I definitely remember this one. So me and my buddy Forrest Toop, the guy who we shared this great love of music. We went downtown and each bought an album, and I bought Scorpions Virgin Killer, and he bought Yesterday and Today. So this was 1976. They were both new releases. And we came back and played them and liked both of them. And we did the first ever of our very, increasingly complicated album trades where I said, well, I liked your Yesterday and Today album better. And he says, well, I like your Scorpions album better. Let's just trade. So it was like unheard of, it's the first time we'd ever done that. But both of those records were both about as heavy as each other. They were both really cool, kind of a real different sort of idea between them. One was pretty party rocking. One was kind of Teutonic and European sounding. So that was it. And then been a fan ever since.
Cool. What about yourself, Pete?
So Martin's got me beat by a couple of years. I actually didn't discover the Scorpions till 82. I heard No One Like You on the radio, and I was like, oh, that's pretty awesome. And I went down to the record shop and I bought this bad boy, Blackout. And then shortly thereafter, I got to see them open up for Rainbow at Madison Square Garden. And I thought they were terrific. And I still think to this day, one of the greatest opening act performances I've ever seen. And then I went backwards and I started scooping up all the rest of their albums. So, probably got into them maybe a little bit later than some people. But I mean, here in the States, they really didn't have much exposure at all until the Blackout album. So, and of course, myself and everybody kind of jumped on board then, and they were, a favorite band of mine throughout much of the 80s. So great stuff.
Yeah. I'm on the same timeline as you, Pete. Early 80s, heard them on the radio. And I remember Columbia House. Remember you buy, so many albums for a penny or whatever? Yeah, well, one of my picks was that record, Blackout. And then I went to see them live. They had this massive show at the C&E Grandstand. Martin probably knows it doesn't really exist anymore. It was called the Heavy Metal Hurricane. There was like 4 bands, and the Scorpions were were the headlining band, and they were on the for Love at First Sting. You know, that would Rock You Like a Hurricane, and what a show! What made me and my buddies laugh was like we love the Scorpions, we love Klaus, but we could not understand a word he said. So when he's on the mic screaming, all we heard was the last word Toronto, and then we cheer. So like gibberish, Toronto, yay! But yeah. But I have seen them twice. Yeah, live, these guys they work their asses off, man. They really put on a show. They really put in you can tell they're working, man. They're really working. Alrighty, so we're gonna pick our top 5. And yeah, I've been listening to Scorpions for the last 6 weeks or so, and I pretty much got my top 5 down. But it was tough, and there's going to be some notable mentions as well. I'm going to warn everybody, my review is going to be very guitar-centric because this band has 3 of my favorite guitar players on the planet, right? You know, Lee, Michael, and Matthias. But anyways, let's start with Martin. What do you got for number 5?
Well, for number 5, I went with Rock Believer. I really, you know, like all Scorpions fans, you know, a new Scorpions album would come out, and for a while there, they were quite weird and not very heavy, and we had the Conceptual Hour one and all that. But Sting in the Tail, pretty good. You found some songs you liked. Return to Forever, same sort of thing. But you were never really sort of feeling. Championing them, thinking they were back, thinking they knew what they were doing, really. And when Rock Believer came out, I was blown away immediately. I got to interview Rudolph and Matthias, both on separate Zoom calls for it, which was really cool. Heard kind of the whole story of why it is the way it is. And there was a guy at the label basically said, oh, we want you to do an album like Blackout again. You know, oh, can you go do that? Go away and do an album like Blackout. And so they actually came back with a really heavy, well put together album. There's still some cringy lyrics on there. It's like, I don't know why no one can sort of fix their lyrics, but you know, 11 songs on the regular album, all kinds of different styles. Most of it, you know, pretty. There's fast heavy, there's mellow heavy, there's kind of a China White sort of song on there. There's one of the better reggaes they did. Which one is it here? Shining of Your Soul is I think one of the better reggaes they ever did. But yeah, Gas in the Tank, really, really cheesy lyrics. But yeah, good heavy stuff on it. And then they did a limited edition album with 5 extra tracks. So you're up to 16 studio songs. Actually, one's an acoustic version of an earlier one. And those are really cool and experimental and all that. So, you know, I don't know how to stress there's this similarity between the last 3, but the last one, you feel like they know what they're doing. That's the kind of cool thing. You just feel like the confidence is there again. And it had that great album cover. And I just think it's the first one where I can and I was warning people like before it came out and, you know, having heard it, telling people, and everybody was skeptical. And then everybody, when it did come out, agreed kind of thing that it actually was truly for the first time we could say, you know, there wasn't this false alarm that we get with a lot of these bands where it really was the best album for a long, long, long time. I won't say, you know, where I go back to on it, but it's definitely, I think it's just a super solid, confident rock and complicated enough, just good, solid heavy metal album, Rock Believer.
Yeah, it's that, like you mentioned, Blackout, right? It's the big chords and the amazing fills, right? And Klaus, right? That's you know, but one, you know, you're mentioning records later on, previous to that, and you know. One thing you gotta tip your hat that these guys try a lot of stuff. Some of it worked and most of it kind of didn't, but at least they try. They try to expand their musical vocabulary, so to speak. So you gotta give them credit for that, whether you like it or not. They did try. So, and they went. I mean, you know, they've been around this long, so they've always been somewhat successful. They've always kept it up. Pete, you're number 5.
So I think I'm going to be a little bit different from you guys. I have a feeling. I came into this band during one kind of changing of the guard, but I think all these years later, I kind of fall back on the previous guard quite a bit. My number 5 is going to be Fly to the Rainbow. Wow. Which is, I got this weird compilation collection here, which has like 3, has In Trance, Virgin Killer, and Fly to the Rainbow on it. This is the first album with Uli. It's very Teutonic. It's kind of psychedelic. It's got that Hendrix influence, but it's got like a few songs that I just absolutely love. I love his guitar playing on it. It's a very uncommercial album. Like there's no like hit type material on it. It's very much of its time. It almost, I guess you could say it sounds kind of dated, but I really, really like it a lot. And I stacked it up against some of the later stuff, and I just find that what I listen to from the Scorpions these days, or even over the last like 20, 25 years, is not the stuff I originally got into, which is kind of weird. So that gives you a little foreshadowing of what my list is going to be filled with. So yeah, I'm going to go Fly to the Rainbow as my number 5. And, Hack, you were talking about how a lot of times when you're listening to Klaus on stage or whatever, half the time you can't even understand what he's saying. I have made a career, a lifetime of probably singing the wrong lyrics to Scorpion songs to the point where I don't even want to go read lyric sheets anymore, because I've been singing all these songs wrong forever. Because especially the early stuff, and how about the stuff that Uli sang on? Anybody know any of the words that he's singing? No, you just can kind of mouth them and hum along to them. But I don't know what he's saying. But so even today, I'm sometimes I'm tempted. I want to go open up the the lyric sheets and find out exactly what they're singing about. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep singing them wrong for the rest of my life. And this is the way it is. So yeah, Fly to the Rainbow, number 5.
Cool.
All right, see, my number 5 is Uli, but it's in trance, which 75, it came out in 75, and that's when they got away from kind of that jammy first couple records, and they started getting more into your typical 3-4 minute structured songs, and that's what I liked about it. I'm just reading my notes here. You can, and there's parts in that record where you can kind of hear where the Scorpions were headed. Like the title cut in Trance, it's kind of mellow, but then it's got that big hooky chorus, which that's something they kept going back to that well over and over again. Uli Roth's, I mean, his guitar playing, I mean, I tell him I'm going to make this very guitar centric. I mean, the guy's a friggin' virtuoso. On tracks like in Trance, that guitar solo is just, it's unfreaking believable. Yeah. In Trance, Life's Like a River, you hear all that Hendrixy kind of style fills, just absolute brilliant playing. Top of the Bill, very cool. Whammy bar effects. I mean, there's Hendrixy stuff in a lot of the stuff he does. Evening Wind's got beautiful lines through it and fills. They did mellow stuff on this record, but the one thing with the mellow stuff that they had early on is that it was mellow, but it always carried a lot of weight, a lot of power. It was very powerful. It wasn't all kind of mushy like some of the stuff later on. So their mellow stuff on this, I actually dig a lot. Standouts for me on this record, like I mentioned in Trance, Living and Dying, Evening Wind, Night Lights. That's a beautiful instrumental on this. You can really hear all through the record. You can really hear Uli's Hendrix tendencies. And the record, was this a Dieter Dierks production, I think, right?
I think so. All right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, this record sounds awesome. It just, all the instruments are so well balanced, so well placed. You hear everything. Martin, I know when we talk about this, you always mention, if I don't have to turn up the treble or turn up the bass, if everything sounds good as is, then, it's a good production. And this record just sounds absolutely stellar, which most of their 70s records sound really, really good. And this is just a great example of a really well done production where you hear everything, you hear all the nuances, and the guitar is not like overbearing. It's perfect. It's just a perfect blend. And that's my number 5 in Trance.
Cool. Right. Yeah, you definitely hear the genius in like Top of the Bill and Dark Lady on that, right? I mean, you hear that this is a special band, right?
Oh yeah.
All right, my number 4. I'm very surprised to see this low, because for years I've called this my favorite Scorpions album, but I did a hard analysis of this. I've got Blackout as my number 4. So the reason this is here now is okay. So it definitely has a few of my very favorite Scorpion songs. I do love this Matthias era a lot, so that's really gonna feature highly in my list. But I love to death Blackout, Dynamite. Arizona is one of my favorite sort of happy party, hair metal-y, happy meal songs of theirs. I think it's really good. And I love China White, but a lot of the rest of it, not that crazy about anymore kind of thing. And there were enough songs on here that it kind of got kicked down the list a little mathematically. Can't Live Without You, not a big fan. Even now, the song Now, I'm supposed to really love that song. It's a fast, heavy one, but it always felt like it was missing a few notes in the chords. The same way that when Priest arrived at Steeler and Rapid Fire, it's like, here's Priest's new fast songs off of British Steel. Not that impressed. I mean, they're not as good as the fast ones from the previous 3 albums, right? So I felt Now is a little bit like that. It just wasn't that great. But yeah, production wise, one of the most gorgeous production sounds you'll ever get is absolutely pristine. Reminds me of Accept Metal Heart, actually, which is Dieter Dierks as well. But yeah, just super, super high fidelity, excellent metal. This is the coolest the Scorpions would ever be on a wide scale. I mean, before this, they were cool on a cult scale. But with this album, they were cool for everybody. They were just cool. They were like the It Band. But, you get up to Love It for Sting, they're doing better, but they're no longer as cool. So this is as cool as it would get for them. So again, Pete and I did an episode, I remember, called Peaks and Valleys albums. This is a definite Peaks and Valleys album for me. I love it so much because I love the 4 or 5 songs that I really, really love on it. But then the rest of it, there's a drop down to sort of the 5-6 zone. And a couple down to the 2-3 zone with, like I say, a bunch of 9s and 10s. So there you go. Number 4, Blackout.
Yeah. That usually ranks a lot higher.
Yeah.
More on that later. Pete, what do you got for number 4?
For number 4, let's go with the album cover that most of our parents, one of the many that our parents really disliked quite a bit. Love Drive. So again, another one of those albums, Signal, kind of a changing of the guard. So Uli's out, Michael's back in briefly. They recorded a kick-ass album with some really, really great songs that I think still really stand up to the test of time today. Another Piece of Meat is great. Love You Sunday Morning's got those great kind of chords. Always Somewhere, really melodic, coast to coast, great instrumental. Can't Get Enough, Raging Fast, Is There Anybody There? Love Drive, the title track, is killer. And then, of course, the wonderful Holiday, a song that Michael now plays in his solo band. And every time he plays it, he complains about how he wrote the song and his brother Yeah, I'm so sick of hearing it already. It's like, enough. Just play the song, Michael, or don't play the song, whatever. But yeah, this is great. It's a good, heavy album. It's got good melodic stuff on here. The ballads are great. The heavy stuff is great. Michael sounds awesome on it. Yeah, just a really good album. Too bad. Well, I shouldn't say too bad it didn't last, because then we wouldn't have gotten the Michael Schenker group. But yeah, cool album. My number 4.
Cool. Yeah. So my number 4. Oh man, and I got all this line up here, and I forgot to show it. So this is my number 4.
Okay.
So this was, I mean, this is when they hit their peak, of popularity, right? And 1984, and this was sort of the tipping point album where they were still kind of the Scorpions, but they were already starting to kind of dip into the what came in the future, the Savage Amusements, Crazy Worlds, where they got a little bit poppy, right? But there's still enough heavy stuff on this before all the pop stuff started to creep in. But the star of this show, this record, and another record that I'll talk about later on, is Matthias Yabs. That guy, I mean, his solos, his fills, just, they take what would have been just okay songs and they make them great songs. I mean, think about Rock. I mean, everyone, Rock You Like a Hurricane. His lines through that song are just absolutely phenomenal. A solo on Bad Boys Running Wild. The small thrill, another one. Like, it's just, his playing is just unbelievable. And when you listen to him, I mean, going back to, say, Uli, his style totally different, much more of a bluesy type player. but he's got this intensity when he plays that it sounds like he's almost going to fly off the rails. It's like he's playing at the top of his ability, you know what I mean? And it's almost like he's going to trip up at any moment, right? And that just like really, when I'm listening to that, it just really, because as a guitar player, really, really captures me. But most of the album is really good. I mean, there are a few songs that I could do without. As soon as the good times roll, Crossfire, you could kind of see where where they were going to go on. Now, Still Loving You. I'm pretty sure that's Rudy playing that solo.
It is.
I mean, come on. What, like, really? It's sloppy. It's a nice melody, but it's not played well. It's not, I don't know why the hell, like, I mean, that's a song that basically, that is a platform for, a good solo, like a good lead. And I like what he's playing, but I don't like the way he's playing it. That should have been Matthias, and that would have probably that song would have ranked higher for me. But with his sloppy playing on it, that, I don't know, that came down a little bit. But apart from that, there's enough good kick-ass playing, and Matthias is absolutely on fire on that record, and that's what makes that a great album for me. But like I said, that one that's like the tipping point for me, that record. But anyway, that's my number 4. Love It for a Sting. All right.
Cool.
What do you got for number 3, Martin?
Okay, number 3, I've got Taken by Force. So I've got this here because, it definitely seems like they tightened down a few of the screws from Virgin Killer on here. I think it's recorded better. It sounds more confident. It sounds like the work of a band who kind of like knows they're special and they're going places. It sounds less accidental. It's got some great rockers on it. Steam Rock Fever is really cool with that wall of sound, sort of Spanish feel to it. Also with that clean guitar, but it's super heavy. And I've Got to Be Free, probably the best groove on the album. Will Burn the Sky is really good. Ride of Your Time is a cool, spooky one that's got enough going on that really reminds me of like Krautrock and the the crevices of Virgin Steel and In Trance and Fly to the Rainbow. And it's also got the greatest Scorpion song of all time, that wins every poll, The Sails of Charon. Amazing. Your Light is a cool one with a kind of like a mellow, funky Hendrix thing. Only really Born to Touch Your Feelings, don't care about, but He's a Woman, She's a Man is just a great, cool, technical, modern rocker, for this era of the band. So it's just really rock solid, and it's that magical lineup that, I'm supposed to like more, but I don't like more. I'm definitely a Matthias era guy. But it's just, rock solid throughout, mathematically, statistically, a lot of great music on here. And just a great metal album for that era.
Oh, for sure. Definitely. Yeah. Okay. What do you got for number 3, Pete?
And I didn't mean to slight Matthias and not mention him on the Love Drive album. He's great on the Love Drive album as well. It's just, for me, that's always like the kind of the Return of Michael album. I think that Matthias is a little bit more prevalent on Animal Magnetism, but him and Michael make a really great pair on Love Drive. Anyway, my number 3 is In Trance. My top 3 are pretty much set in stone always. They've been my 3 favorite Scorpions albums for a number of years. I love this album. All the songs that are on here that I really love the most are also on Tokyo Tapes. But man, Dark Lady is so good. I love the title track. Life's Like a River is great. Top of the Bill, great song. Living and Dying, Robot Man, Evening Wind, Sun in My Hand. Just, it's all really great. And they sound fantastic on it. I really like Klaus's vocals are in this time period as well. It still sounds like Klaus that we know and love from the 80s, but it's a little bit different. You get Uli singing a couple songs again. He's got a really kind of crappy voice, especially back then, but it matches the songs. And this music, like the early Scorpions, is like so difficult to describe because it really doesn't sound anything like what they did in the 80s. It's kind of, you can call it metal, but is it really metal? It's like, Martin mentioned funkiness before. There's this like kind of psychedelic, Teutonic, krautrocky, hard rocky. There's blues on here. There's little classical runs. It's really, really unique music and pretty uncommercial, actually. But I just absolutely love it. And I think Uli was one of the great guitar talents of the 70s. And of course, still to this day. But man, was he doing some cool shit back there that I just continue to fall in love with more and more as the years go by. So yeah, In Trance is my number 3.
Cool.
Nice.
So my number 3, it's already been mentioned, and it is Love Drive. I mean, you've got Shanker and Matthias on this record, right? You got two amazing guitar players. How can you go wrong? It's I mean, right from the start, the opening track, "Loving You Sunday Morning," is a fantastic song. The production on this, I'm not too crazy about. For me, it sounds a little too upper mids, too bright, and too crowded. You don't have that nice separation that you had on the previous records, the '70s records, and actually Blackout. So that for me is a negative on it, but it's a pretty good straight up rock record. The the chords and the playing, you can hear clearly that the two different styles between the two lead players on this. You can tell even without looking at the thing. You can tell when it's Michael, and you can tell when it's Matthias playing. In a nutshell, for me, Shanker is his stuff is always a little more creative and a little more fluid. Not to say anything negative about Matthias. Matthias plays basically exactly what's required, and he plays what it's more predictable, but not in a negative sense. It's still very, very good. um you know yeah, there's not really a bad song on here. I really dig the reggae that they did. Is There Anybody There? I think that's a cool change up for what is a pretty heavy record, all in all. So but yeah, I mean, there's even a Skinner kind of song on this. For me, it sounds like Skinner. Always Somewhere is a Skinner tune. So they got a Skinner tune in here. They got a reggae tune in here, which is kind of cool. They're, a little bit of variety, because I do like that when bands, they put out a record and, there's a little bit of variety in the material. Just, you don't get that ear fatigue thing from listening to the same thing, for 10, 11 songs or whatever it might be. But yeah, Love Drive, with two amazing guitar players on it. So there you go. That's my number 3, 1979.
I think Matthias really came into his own on Blackout. Like that was his kind of coming out party. And then Love at First Sting took it even further.
Well, you can tell, like, yeah, there's that whole aggressive, in your face, flying off the rails thing that didn't happen on this record. That happened later. It's like, that's almost it almost sounds a little timid what he's doing on this.
And he's almost there on Animal Magnetism, but it's on Blackout is when he really just kind of cuts loose. And
yeah, for sure. Okay, Martin, what do you got for number 2?
Okay, number 2 for me, I went with Love Drive. There's the band shot on the back. Yeah, I think this has got some of the new version, the sort of Americanized, bright, but they're still kind of complicated, heavy songs. Loving You Sunday Morning, you definitely hear those nascent pre-hair metal chords in that song. It's kind of a party tune, but it just rolls along. It's got a lot of power to it. Another Piece of Meat's a heavy one on here. Coast to Coast is often celebrated as one of the great rock instrumentals of all time. You hear that a lot. Can't Get Enough with the snare and the bass inverted. Like, that's a good technical heavy one. Really cool. Klaus is wailing away on there. I agree with you, Hack. Is There Anybody There is a really good reggae. I like when they do these reggaes. They actually do a good job of it. I don't like when they do any kind of power ballad or ballad, period. I don't know if there's any of those that I like, including Holiday. I'm not a big fan, but Love Drive on here is almost like the perfect synthesis of the old Mensa intelligentsia metal from the Uli years and the new sort of style where there's just a little bit more getting with it with the Americanized sort of sound. I mean, I don't know, maybe it's a little more well, no, I guess it's a little more moving into the 80s. Maybe it's not too particularly new wave British heavy metal, but it's just a really good technical song that is also accessible at the same time. So yeah, again, on the percentages, there's just a lot of good metal on here, and it's still a pretty smart album. It's the one that feels like the the most note dense and complicated, given the three guitars, I suppose, of all the ones moving forward. So that's my number 2.
Yeah, yeah. It's nice. It's nice too, like with the variety and the players, right? Going from one song to another, and yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, P, what do you got for number 2?
I got Taken by Force. I mean, Martin really kind of said a lot about this already. That's great about this album. It's got one of the best Scorpion songs of all time, especially from the Uli era, Sails of Sharon. But man, Steam Rock Fever is great. We'll Burn the Sky, classic. I like I've Got to Be Free, another terrific song. He's a Woman, She's a Man is great. It's got little mellower songs, kind of like this, kind of like Hendrixy thing, like You're Alive, Born to Touch Your Feelings. But it's just got this really cool vibe. And it's like, to me, like you have this succession of albums with Uli where the band is just getting better and better. And then that's it, right? They go and they do Tokyo Tapes, and then it's Uli's off doing, his own thing, and they go in a kind of a different direction. But I think that these 4 albums with Uli are very, very special. And again, I have to harp back on the uniqueness of them. To me, they're so different than what anybody else was doing during this time period. And this is a pretty heavy album. I think most people would arguably say that this is the heaviest album of the Uli era. At least it has some of the heaviest songs. So, really good stuff. I dig it quite a bit. Might be my number 1, but I think my number 1 is one that has just kind of been my favorite for a long, long time. It has some of my favorite songs on it. So we'll get to that in a minute. So, Taken by Force.
All right. Well, my number 2 is Taken by Force.
All right.
Yeah. This could have been my number 1, but my number 1 is always going to be my number 1. This is the home of Sails of Sharon, Uli's masterpiece. Apart from Sails, I love We'll Burn the Sky. At the end, Uli just goes nuts. To just let him loose at the end, and that what he's playing is at the end is fantastic. I've Got to Be Free. You hear all the Hendrixy stuff on that. Crazy good solo. Ride of Your Time. Almost Prague. You're Light. Got a fantastic groove. The songwriting on this record is what I really, really like. I love the variety and the finesse in the changes and the arrangements. I mean, just listen to Your Light. Like, that is a fantastic, well put together song. It's like once Uli left, I think they lost a little bit of the sort of the finesse, and they went more for like meat and potatoes kind of, big chords and big solos. Like they lost that, those nice little, frills and things that, Uli added to the mix to kind of make it more interesting and not just like, in your face kind of thing. So I don't know if you call that Americanizing or simplifying or stripped down or whatever, but they did lose a lot of those frills, after Uli left. And but anyway, He's a Woman, She's a Man. Great tune. The only you mentioned Steamroller. I don't know, Steam Rock Fever. I just find that song really cheesy. And the Born to Touch Your Feelings with the talking at the end with all the languages. It's like, apart from that, absolutely fantastic record, and it could have very well been my number one. And this is, if anyone is unfamiliar with Uli, this is the record that I would say, in a band in the Scorpions context, this would be the one that I would recommend to listen to, because that guy's just playing off his face. Amazing on this. So yeah, that's my number 2, Taken by Force. So there we go.
All right.
Down to number 1.
Okay, my surprise number 1, like I say, for a long time, it was Blackout. I really sort of thought about this, but I went with Animal Magnetism.
Wow.
You talk about peaks and valleys albums. This is the absolute opposite. Ever since the day this came out, it almost just sounds like everything is recorded at one arrangement and one thing all the way through. That's a bit of a negative in a way, but to me, this has a real even keel heaviness all the way throughout. And then sort of they mix it up a little bit, make it real starts out, which is kind of like like a poppier version of something like a Rock You Like a Hurricane. It's poppy. But it's got a little European in it as well. Don't Make No Promises, super heavy one. Hold Me Tight. I forgot how heavy that is. That's a good heavy song, right? And it reminds me of Montrose Make It Last. It's like just these big, massive chords, but it's still got, the heavy metal structure to it. 20th Century Man is a little bit of a weird one. That's the kind of a little disco-y, experimental, funky one. Lady Starlight, I think, is total crap. I don't ever listen to it, but the whole of side 2 is awesome. Falling in Love, again, that one also reminds me a little bit of that. You think of the way that starts out. It's got those sweet and sour notes to it that you get in Rock You Like a Hurricane, which are really weird notes, right? Sharp, I guess, maybe. I don't know. Are they sharp? But that's a great heavy song, but right in that whole American feel with the big chunky, the sort of scrape sound in them. Only a Man, big kind of swinging heavy one, kind of a little doomy, and then you get into the 2 slow ones, right? The 2 weird slow ones, but they're different from each other. The Zoo, big huge classic of theirs.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. It does have a little bit of that thing, the way I find Roadhouse Blues boring. It has a bit of that in it. But Animal Magnetism, which is even slower, is not boring to me. That's their big Zeppelin-y, Kashmir-y sort of weird one. So it's pretty experimental. So all of side 2, like a lot, and most of side 1. So yeah, this is your even keel album. It's always been that way for me. It's I don't know. It's a weird one. I notice it's platinum, which is quite bizarre. I can never really think of that record as a platinum album. I just don't remember it being that big at the time. But yeah, there's my number 1. Again, it's a little bit from the mathematics and a little bit from the Americanized hooks that you get in the Matthias era.
Yeah. All right, number 1, Pete.
All right, I'm almost afraid to show the original cover of this, but there it is. It's from an album called Virgin Killer. Virgin Killer from the 70s. Uli, great album. Probably, I think, the album that has his most Hendrixy like playing on it, I think, but it's pretty damn heavy. I mean, it's got some of my favorite Scorpion songs. It's got Pictured Life, Killer, Catch Your Train, great rhythm. In Your Park is kind of this mid-paced, moody piece. Love it. Backstage Queen, good kind of boogie rocker. I love the title track, Virgin Killer. I just wish it was longer. It's got amazing guitar solos and riffs in it. Really good, really fast and frantic. Hellcat. It's absolutely terrific. I think one of the unsung gems of this part of the catalog. It's funky, it's psychedelic, it's just got a killer wah-wah solo. I mean, Uli is just absolutely amazing on it. Crying Days is cool. Polar Nights is, to me, along with the title track to Fly to the Rainbow, I think Uli's like crowning achievement next to whatchamacallit from Take It by Force. Do you want to blank? Polar Nights, just absolutely great. Again, some amazing solos. His use of the whammy bar is terrific. And then the really cool Yellow Raven, which is this kind of cool, mysterious, again, kind of bluesy, psychedelic Hendrixy thing. I love Virgin Killer. I played this album to death back in the day. I still enjoy listening to it. And again, like with a lot of these bands from the 70s that we, grew up, fell in love with, a lot of their great songs on their studio albums are well represented on their classic live album. And probably those are even the definitive versions of them. So even though I love the studio versions, all the ones that are on Tokyo tapes, even better in my opinion. So, but yeah, Virgin Killer, my number 1.
I disagree on the song Virgin Killer. I don't think you could touch a better version of that. That sounded like Satan Unleashed when we heard that in 1976. That's so heavy with those guitars going panning back and forth and stuff, and Klaus just singing. And there's this one cool point in there where try to escape, and it sounds like he's out of breath, right? It sounds like he's pulling his hair out. That's probably why he's balding, right?
Yep,
I mean, that song is just so frantic, and that was, I mean, honestly, I would imagine I would imagine in 76 hearing that for the first time, that we looked at each other and said, I don't think I've ever heard a heavier song than this ever.
Yeah, it's crushing.
Yeah.
It's crushing and maniacal, and I wish it was longer. I mean, that and Hellcat are both pretty short tracks. And most of the songs on this album, except for like Polar Nights, are pretty short. But yeah, I did more, please. Yeah, great stuff.
All right, well, I'm going to be the odd man, but my number one is probably most people's. It's the typical one, but I got to go with this one.
Right.
I mean, first Scorpions album I bought, and it's still my favorite. I mean, the star of the show on this album, Matthias Yabs, man. This album turned me into a huge Matthias Yabs fan. I think this is definitely his best playing on any record is on this record. You know, he's absolutely on fire throughout this whole record. I mean, his intensity, the fire that he's playing with, it's like he's flying off the rails, like when he's doing those runs, and it's like, holy shit, man. It's, it still blows me away, right? That's what makes this album for me, is Matthias is playing. I mean, the songs are great, but his playing, like I said, just, puts these songs over the top. It's a powerhouse of a record, like right off the bat, the title cut, Can't Live Without You, No One Like You, like, I'm done. That's it. Okay, that's the best starting songs on a record that, I can think of. I mean, just hit you, bang, 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 just fantastic. The weak points for me, I mean, it's not a perfect album. It's close, but the weak points for me, You Give Me All You Need, not a fan. Arizona for me, it doesn't fit. It's too poppy for me. But the rest of it is just straight up solid Scorpion style rock. And Scorpion style rock at that time was the big chords, the big vocals, and those fantastic lead lines that just, weaved in and out of it. And China White, come on. That's their Kashmir, crushing, and Dynamite, another one, just on fire, man, just intense. And like Martin said earlier, the sound of this record, unlike a lot of 80s records, sounds fantastic. It's a really, really well produced record, and I love it. Blackout. For me, it's got to be Blackout.
Cool.
Yeah. But Taken by Force is damn close. They were like neck and neck. You guys got any honorable mentions? Any number 6s, number 7s, and just kind of.
Wow. Well, I definitely have to put in Trance and Virgin Killer. I'm softening a little bit over the years on Love at First Sting. We were really upset with that, me and my buddies back then when that came out. It was way too mellow, way too stupid. I mean, it had just too many just dull songs, right? But now I'm kind of liking those a little more. And then there's some good stuff on Savage Amusement and Crazy World. I suppose the nadir years for them that everybody hates the most are Eye to Eye for sure. Bottom for everybody.
Yeah.
That's when they tried actual dance pop.
Yeah.
And Face the Heat's usually pretty low with people, and Humanity Hour 1 is pretty low with people. And then they try to sort of bring it back, and just like I say, some weird songs. But if you could have took all the best songs off of like those later ones and put them together, you'd have just like a really slamming album. But again, it just seems like that would be faking it, because you lost confidence in them. You thought they don't know what they're doing, kind of thing, right? It's a weird idea. When you're championing a band and you're celebrating with them, and other times you're kind of feeling sorry for them and kind of liking them more and wish you liked the albums more. You know what I mean? And I think that's different now with Rock Believer. I think they really knocked one out of the park with that one.
Yeah, they did. They lost their way, and then they tried. They were reaching for straws there, and and they were experimenting a lot. And for me, like the record, listening to all that stuff, just it was painful. I'll be honest with you. So that stuff was just painful to get through. But there was a couple of gems in there. Rock Believer, they found their way, and there were moments in Sting of the Tail where I thought, there's some pretty good stuff on this, right? But there was a lot of bad stuff in there as well. What about you, Pete? You got any?
Yeah, probably number 6 is Blackout for me. I still really dig most of it. I find that like the two that I was really into back in the day, which was Blackout and Love at First Sting. I find I don't listen to those much anymore. In fact, Love at First Sting, I really don't care for a hell of a lot anymore. I like a couple songs still, but most of it I find just doesn't sit well with me anymore. But Blackout still is pretty good. So that's probably my number 6. I, believe it or not, I really like the first album quite a bit.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a very different album. And, you know, Lonesome Crow is kind of like early 70s blues rock, but it's kind of psychedelic and krautrocky. And I got to say, Michael Schenker's guitar playing is jammy, but I don't mind that because I like that style of rock. And I'm just amazed at how good Michael was back then. I mean, as a young kid, man.
Was he like 16 or something? How old was he?
15 or 16. Yeah, it's crazy good. So, you know, it's no surprise he got the gig in UFO because the guy obviously had the chops. But yeah, it's just a weird album. Like you listen to it today and it's like, it just doesn't quite sound like Scorpions, but it sounds pretty good to my ears. So I like it. That's a lot of times, like if I know people are not into metal and, but they like krautrock and, you know, that late 60s, early 70s kind of European blues rock and stuff. I generally will try to recommend Lonesome Crow because I think it fits right in with all that stuff. So I kind of dig it. I think that's pretty cool. And I do like the new album. I think the new album is pretty good. I just worry that they did that album just to try and say, hey, we can still do stuff like we used to do. And if that's really, you know, kind of like Metallica, you know, Metallica came back in more recent years like, oh, yeah, we can still do the kind of thrashy thing, you know, maybe even deep down inside that's not really where they're at anymore. I wonder if that's the Scorpions now but regardless, I think it's a fun album. I mean, Rock Believer is a good listen. It's got some really good tunes on it. You know, I don't love all of it, but I think it's the best thing they've done in years. Easy.
Oh, definitely.
Easy. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. All right. So wrapping up, Martin, is there anything you got upcoming that you wanted to mention? By the way, I have the link to Martin's website below if anyone is interested in Martin's books. But Martin, you got anything coming up?
Yeah, I do have a Scorpions book, right? So it's called Wind of Change, the Scorpion story. Not my title. That kind of happened without me. But anyways, it's the update from the old book when it's called Top of the Bill. So it's basically everything up to Return to Forever. A story of the band. So that's all martinpopoff.com. I've got the audio podcast, History in 5 Songs with Martin Popoff, and we've got the video channel, The Contrarians.
Cool. Pete, I know you got something very big coming up.
I do. We are having our first ever Sea of Tranquility festival. It's called Sea of Tranquility Fall Fest 2022, October 1st at the Chance Theater in Poughkeepsie, New York. So it's an all-day event, 12:30 in the afternoon till about midnight. Afternoon is going to be all recreating some of our panel discussions we do on the channel. So we're going to do the Hudson Valley Squares, and in the Prague seat, Martin and I are going to do a segment as well. Then we'll have Chris Caffrey from Sabotage and Trans-Siberian Orchestra doing a Q&A with the audience. We'll have Andy Powell, guitarist and vocalist from Wishbone Ash, doing the same. And then we've got 4 bands playing. We've got Sonus Umbra, prog band from the Chicago area. We've got Epic Tantrum, a prog band from the upstate New York area. Then we've got the Pat Travers Band. Cool. Vanilla Fudge, featuring Carmine Appice and company, and the legendary prog band Nectar, the British prog band Nectar, are headlining. So it's a full day of music discussion and music, and almost everybody from Sea of Tranquility who appears on the channel will be there in person. So it's going to be a lot of fun for us as well. So Martin and I are really looking forward to this. Not only doing what we do every Friday morning, Saturday afternoon, just, you know, I mean, Martin and I know each other a long time. We've never met in person. So this will be fun for us. And just getting to hang out with all the SOT folks is going to be a blast. And the music's going to be great. So tickets are available now. So hopefully we'll see some of you folks that watch Guitar Hack in person at the Chance in Poughkeepsie.
Cool. And I've got a link to Pete's YouTube page below. And also below, folks, if you want to help support this channel, there's Guitar Hack merch such as cups, hoodies, t-shirts, all that good stuff. There's hats. There's a PayPal down there as well. And if you don't follow me, I've got a Facebook page and an Instagram down there below. And check out the channel. Please hit the like. If you enjoyed what you saw, we're going to be doing more of these next month. We do them about once a month. So hit the like, hit the subscribe if you're new to the channel, and check it out. All right, I want to thank these gentlemen again. very much for doing this show. These are always a good time, always a lot of fun. And we will catch you all next time. Guys, hang out for a bit. All right. Cheers, everybody.
Bye-bye.